next meeting should be on July 1st. Are all of us in agreement with that?
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, we're trying to do I think the first Friday of the month, so it would be July 1st.
Okay.
Okay, so Satish, can we start with your presentation now?
Yeah, I will just start off.
Okay.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, Satish.
Okay. Yes. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the challenges and the.
Satish, sorry, can you speak up a little louder? I could hear Ankur and John clearly. I'm not able to hear you clearly right now.
Okay, can you hear me properly now?
I can hear you. I can hear him.
Okay? Please go on then. If others can hear you guys, then please go on.
You might turn up the volume. You might
the volume is at the max, John. Our volume on the laptop is at the max, but I think that we'll try to manage with what we can hear today.
Okay.
Okay. So just to start off, basically, let me talk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the challenges I faced while getting Sociocracy implemented in some of the organizations I was talking to, and how I approached them, and what are the challenges I faced while doing that. Right. Now, one of the first challenge I had was my personal. What were my personal objectives? Now, the way I had approached the problem was very different from a typical, Sociocracy implementation problem. I don't know if everybody has this same approach or not, but my objectives were slightly different. My objective was not to talk about Sociocracy or sell Sociocracy, but get into an engagement with an organization more on the level of getting an implementation done, and not about training Sociocracy as such. So while doing that, so one of the first things, my mindset was, if you look at any typical Chinese restaurant, you can recognize that the Chinese that restaurant is a Chinese restaurant by the look of it, by the color of it, and just from the outside. But if you visit any Chinese restaurant anywhere in the world, different. The recipes are different. The taste is different. Then they don't have the same style of taste or same style of recipes. Or in every region, if you see, they are very different. As an example, if you go to anywhere in India, you will see gobi Manchurian as one of the popular Chinese dish. But outside India, you will never hear of a dish called gobi Manchurian, or even a chicken Manchurian as such. So that's one thing which is typical of a Chinese restaurant is, they are unique, but you can recognize them from outside that that's a Chinese restaurant. But if you go the other direction on a restaurant business, it's basically like a McD or a KFC and so on and so forth. You will see that the recipes and the menu is the same all over the world. They taste the same, and everything is standardized. So they follow a cookie cutter process, but everything is standardized and everything is followed to the T. Now, the way I see it is any implementation of a process, which is going to be like something like a Sociocracy process or a lean process, is they have to be unique for that organization and for that culture. And you cannot have the same implementation in every organization and follow the same process in and out. So that was my first mindset. The second mindset was I was not trying to come in as a consultant. I was not trying to come in as, and say, hey, this is the way you have to do it, and this is the right way of doing it, or this is the wrong way of doing it. And I was not talking, trying to do a top-down approach or an approach where I was coming as an expert, but where I was coming as also one another learner for the process. Now, typically, when I was talking to any of these organizations, one of the challenges was, are you crazy? Or is this a cult? Or are you selling me a snake oil? Right? And that was one of the biggest challenge was, what is sociocracy or holocracy, or what does this all mean as such? Even if was able to have a conversations along, okay, what is sociocracy and so on and so forth. Next challenge was, why should I do it now? And how long do you want to run workshop for? 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. We don't have the time for that much. We never have that kind of a time. Anybody have any questions?
Satish, I'm enjoying this a lot. I'm really loving it. I'm thinking, I want to get a copy and show some people.
All right. Then the other question was, all right, sociocracy sounds very fine, but how does it help my organization? What value does it bring to the table? The second question, which followed up with that, was, what do you bring to the table, and what is the difference between you and somebody else? Why should we go to you? Right? So, wherever I had a pretty, let us say, successful meeting, and where I was able to take the conversation to the next stage, the main thing I learned, if I look at all those conversations, the main thing I learned was I didn't try to sell sociocracy. I didn't even talk about sociocracy in a couple of these cases. The main focus I did was, what are your organizational challenges? What are you trying to change? Why are you trying to change that? And what are you trying to bring into your organization? What kind of alignment are you bringing in? What kind of ownership and management process are you trying to bring in? And if generally the leader was talking about alignment and delegation and ownership and those kind of stuff, then those keywords basically told me that hey, this person is interested in a process where a sociocracy kind of conversation can really help. Now, generally, if the leader also had gone through some personal transformation or an organization transformation, then there was an interesting conversation, and that actually led to a much more meaningful and insightful conversation with those leaders. Otherwise, it just became a conversation of trying to tell what is a sociocracy and so on and so forth. The next part was, if the person was also interested in building a learning organization. And that was one of the keys, which I didn't realize was, hey, if there are many people who may not be interested in transformation, but they are interested in building a learning organization and like continuous improvement and so on and so forth. Even for them, sociocracy kind of became a pretty interesting model. And then when I came and talked about, what were my struggles and challenges building an organization in the last 20 years, and what kind of problems I faced and how did I try to overcome them, but I failed. And now if I look back at those challenges and see if I had used sociocracy, how it might have worked for me, then that conversation also basically actually made them believe, that I'm not coming as a consultant, but I'm coming in as another implementation person who has gone through those challenges and has gone through those processes. So now I'll talk about, after all the sales cycles and everything, I managed to have 3 or 4 organizations which are really interested in doing something around it. And I have actually done one workshop now successfully with an organization. So I will talk about that organization and what happened there. So this organization right now is basically a 46 people company. They are, it's a software services company. It's a pure software services as such. They generally follow Scrum on all their client projects. And most of the clients are basically based out of US, and they're either startups or SMEs as such. This company has been there from, I think, last now, if I remember correctly, maybe around 8 years or 9 years in the, this company has been alive for at least around 8 or 9 years now. So now this is if you look at the, so there's an interesting background about this organization structure as such. So they basically have a typical structure of a software and services company, but they're also now transforming themselves into a circle-based organization. So there are two different setups, which somehow they're trying to gel it and make it work together. So there is a sales team which does the sales operations and so on and so forth, and the finance team. Then there's an engineering team, which is the biggest team out there, with product development and QA under the engineering, and then project managers who fall not directly under engineering but under CEO and engineering. So there's a bifurcation of roles out here, rather how the control works. And now they're trying to transform that whole setup into a 3-circle based organization, where the 3 circles are basically meant for strategy building and defining the roadmap for the organization as such, but not for the day-to-day running of the org. So if you look at it, the org chart is still working as they're on a day-to-day activity is still on the as it is in the left-hand side, but strategy is being defined now, in the right-hand circle, where they have heads council rather, and the council circle. The heads circle is basically consisting of the CEO and the sales and finance and engineering heads. And then you have the main council with the rest of the company. So everybody in the company gets to vote some to the council. And that council member can stay in the council for 6 months, and then they had a re-election afterwards. So that's more of a democratic process as such. And the council has access to a lot of information on their quarterly basis and on the quarterly reports. I will talk about it a little later. So this is a typical Scrum-based and a Kanban-based company. So they have most of their projects are run, on the client-based projects are basically run like a Kanban or a Scrum style. So few things they already have done. So this was done before I even had any major conversation with them. One of them was they already had exposed their internal information, employee information to and made it available publicly to their company as such. This included salary. So everybody's salary is known to everybody. And what are the KPI reviews and so on and so forth, and what are the review status and that kind of information. So everybody has an access to that information. They did that sometime last year, and they had, I think, a big wake-up call because of that, because then there were some internal fights and internal tussle around certain things. Why is somebody getting paid more than this, or so on and so forth. So there was a realignment of salaries and all that stuff, which happened sometime last year. Then they also had idea to move to a circle-based organization, which I have already talked about. And in there, if you really look at it, the council has access to all the organization's performance information, like what is the revenue, how much revenue they're generating, what are the bookings they're doing, what are the what contracts they have, and at what price rates they have done it, and so on and so forth. And they're trying to actually see if the price rates can be actually spoken about and negotiated even by the team as such, and if they can get involved in that process. And few of the outcomes were also 20% investment time, which basically is something like, though they are a services company, so they have decided that one day a week they will not be billing, and they will be involved only in their internal projects. So this, in fact, came from one of the council meetings, and so they have kind of rolled out this process right now in their company, and they have actually used this process to learn new stuff and also come up with some side projects and side product ideas and so on and so forth. And they hope to see some leverage coming out of that down the road. So this was my engagement model. So when I spoke to these guys, the process was basically, we will do a 4-hour session. So where in that 4-hour session, I did an assessment. Then I worked with them on after the assessment to identify what their goals and objectives are. And I use the assessment as a way to start a conversation of what does the organization really value, what they really want to achieve, and why are they trying to do all these changes, and then use that to identify what the goals and objectives are. From that, I actually defined a way to come up and generate a set of circles. Then this circles had to make a proposal, and those proposals were then evaluated and then accepted by the larger circle as such. And then that process is where I left them at that stage. In that whole process, they kind of understood not the sociocracy model as such, but they have understood how the consent-driven meeting can be done. What is the circle, difference between a circle policy circle meeting and an activity circle meeting, and so on and so forth. And now the next step for them is to basically come up with a set of implementing activities, and then measure those activities, evaluate those activities if they are achieving those or not. So the way I have set up the engagement with them is I will be. Is there a question here? Okay, I'll proceed. So the idea is now that after this, we will be evaluating this as circle activity every 2 weeks, and we will then see if if things are working as planned. If not, we will then try to fine tune those activities and so on and so forth, and then again reevaluate. If required, do a reassessment and then go back and do the whole cycle all over again. So my engagement right now is, I will be meeting them every 2 weeks, and after that, I will be coming up with another set of workshops for what they need to do and how they want to do it, and that will be again driven by their needs and their requirements as such. The other thing I will be also doing them is on a weekly basis will be helping them as a coach, where they will come up with their problems and they say, okay, we need help in doing XYZ activity, and then I'll try to help them in those activities as such. So some of the resistance and challenges I faced while doing this 4-hour presentation or workshop with them was, the biggest was cynicism, which is typical, right? Most of these people are pretty smart guys, so they were not very sure if what I was proposing will work or not. So the only way I could help them was make sure that all those goals and objectives came up from ground up and not from from the bosses as such. And then I tried to make sure that the circle creation and circle aims and goals were done as early as possible. And then each circle came up with a proposal with some actionable item as such. The second thing I tried to do was, make sure that the circle members were self-selected. That is, they decided what items they want to work on, and they themselves went to and created a circle instead of somebody coming and telling them you should join this circle and so on and so forth. So I was afraid that with that option, it may happen that everybody from a circle belongs to the same team, and there is no cross-cutting of the representative out there. Thankfully, it kind of worked out, but there's still that danger of where you may have a team or a circle where there's nobody from other than one team in that circle. And then one of the few things I try to make sure that as a proposal, so that's one thing where I had to really work with them was, when you're making a proposal, make sure that there is something which is actionable, which comes out as actionable item immediately, and it has some measurable and traceable objectives. So they themselves had to also define what are the measurement items they're going to use to measure it, and how are they going to say that this is achieved or not achieved, and then who's the owner for it. So that is something which took some time for them to understand when they were doing the proposal creation as such. one of the biggest challenge I faced was, to stay as a facilitator or a coach, because I was trying to get into solutioning myself. I was trying to say, okay, hey, this is how you could do it, and then I had to stop myself and say, oh, no, okay, you guys figure it out, and you guys go ahead and do it, and I will just facilitate the whole process. And the other thing is, I forgot to make this statement: good enough for now, safe enough to try. So I never got around to saying this statement, and I later realized, okay, though I was trying to achieve that, but I never made that clear. All right, that's it from me. So I think I'm just reached the end the time. So any questions out here?
So, Ankur, I'd suggest that you go around to each person and see what comments or questions they have.
Sure. Okay. So Satish, first of all, thank you very much for this presentation. So let's go one by one. What are their views, what they have learned, and what are the questions? So let's start with Suma. So Suma, can you?
As you know that people have started. Oh, am I muted? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So this is wonderful, Satish, that you already started. What do you say? Implementing it in an organization. The main.
So you have any question for him? Do you have any question for Satish? No.
No.
Okay. So, okay, let's go with Aki.
Yeah, one that it was really interesting to hear what Satish shared. I wanted to ask him, like, how did you deal with the difficult people? Like, did you have people who are not very involved, as you had mentioned in one of the slides? So, what did you bring in so that everybody is involved in the process?
So one thing was, it was not a presentation-driven activity at all. So I did not even do any presentation as such. In fact, I only had a set of charts and a set of boards, and I actually made them go through the whole process of, okay, hey, identifying what things they want to work, what are the challenges and the goals their company and the organization is working through. But before that, I did an assessment, and that assessment allowed me to create a value map. And so I did not dive into that process, but that was a pretty interesting, let's say 45 minutes conversation with the team as such, where we actually talked about, what they really value, what are kind of, what does it mean to have an, that value, and how does it look like when you're doing a team interaction and so on and so forth. As an example, when you say, what is let us say let's say when you talk about what is entrepreneurial, right, or when you talk about what is let's say empowerment and so on and so forth, how does it look like, how does it how when you talk to your manager and you say you're empowered, what does it really mean, right, and so on and so forth. And those conversations basically led for people to talk about and become a little bit open about, how they want to look at things and so on and so forth. And then, as I had done a survey, so I didn't show the results of the survey, but I have a small little graph which I may be able to pull out and show you. Let me see, where is it? Okay, can you see that graph?
looks like it's not shared yet.
You need to do share.
Okay, can you see it right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it looks very nice out here, but unfortunately, I'm very sure it's not very visible to you guys out there. But the idea of this graph is basically it defines, okay, hey, when we talk about team, what is the team cohesiveness? Okay, for some reason, I just threw up this presentation very fast. I didn't really review it properly, so I will try to, maybe I'll share this slide later, and then you can look at it a little better. But in the graph, basically the idea is, you can actually look at, there are some 6 different dimensions on which you can look at the org as such. So like, how good they are at making their own decisions, how good they are at, as a team, how good they are in following processes, and so on and so forth. It's not like about good, but what they value out there, and how does it work, and how does it look like. Now, this conversation basically allowed me to get into a deeper conversation about what they really value and how they want to do it. And because of that, they were able to self-select what are the goals and objectives they want to work on as an org, right? And then they were able to use that as a process to say, okay, what are the circles we want to create, and how are those circles going to work? Then they will then able to make that as a proposal making process for the circle itself. Now, because this is all done by them and not by me or by their as their CEO calls them, pointy head bosses. So they were able to basically buy into the whole process in some form. I'm sure that there will be still some resistance, but at least now they have bought in, and they are actually agreeing to the objectives. They are agreeing to the timelines, and they are actually making the proposal. So they are responsible for it, and so they have to actually follow up and do it, right? And now it's only for us to follow up and say, okay, where are we? Why? And ask the question why it's not working and how it is working, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Is your question answered really well?
Yeah, thanks, Satish. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll go with John next. John, what are your comments about the presentation and any question?
John, you're mute.
Suma has put some questions in the chat. Perhaps you might want to address those first. You see in the chat?
In the chat, she asked, how long did this process take from the time you mentioned the word to implementation till now? So what is the total time it takes? And how many employees are there? I think that is already been mentioned. There are 48 employees, right?
46, yes.
46.
And yeah. But for the workshop, I did not have the full attendance out there. So I had around 34 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number right now, but that was the attendance for the workshop as such. And the cycles, so it took me around 3-4 meetings with the CEO to actually come up with, how we're going to run the workshop. And the workshop was done in 4 hours flat. Okay. And after that, so one of the things we have decided is it's going to be a continuous learning process, and it's a continuous learning system. So it's going to take time for them to also come up with how things are working and so on and so forth. Right now, we have decided that every 2 weeks we are going to have a retrospective and say, okay, what is working, what is not working, and so on and so forth, and then go back and decide, okay, what we need to change, how we need to change, and then go from there.
Okay, and another question she has is, how did you choose this particular organization? It's by someone's reference, or you approached them directly? How did you choose this?
So that's one of the things I was talking about in my presentation in the sales cycle. So I had a lot of conversation with many people, and then I realized that selling Sociocracy is not going to really help, but selling change management and organization changes, and how do you manage that, and how do you provide a way to build an effective org is something what is more important to the CEO as such. And then speaking about what kind of transformation they want to do and so on and so forth. So basically, I was trying to do filtering on in the sense of, are they really interested in a transformation, or are they just looking at, exploring this idea in some form? So if they're interested in doing some transformation, I actually had a serious conversation with them and actually followed up with them. And that's a pretty, you have to ask open-ended questions. You have to ask some questions where, to say, okay, are these people really right fit for this, at least for me? Are they right fit for me to work with them? So I had to do a lot of filtering in that. How did I get this organization? Because I'm in the software world, so I basically know many of these people, not directly, but I have connections in some. So I was able to approach many of these people and talk about if they are interested in this kind of model.
Okay. So Suma, are your questions really answered well by Satish, or you still have any question?
Yeah, there was one more thing that I'm thinking, that there must be something about, there must be something that you do. Are you a business coach? Something that helps them to realize that, okay, let's listen to Satish, because anybody comes and talks, they'll not talk, right? So there must be something that.
So to be honest, so I come with a 20 years experience in software world. And I have created, so let's say I created and shut down 3 companies in my last 20 years. So I've gone through the whole cycle and pain of building teams and building organization all the time. So when I come with that background, so it's easy for me to have a conversation with the CEO of a company, at least a small services company, and then talk to them about what can be done, what cannot be done, and so on and so forth. So that way it's easier for me. But if I had come as a consultant, then I'm very sure I wouldn't have had any access to meet some of these people.
Okay. So we'll go with John.
Okay, great. I've been enjoying this very much. And to everybody, I've been taking some notes in the agenda document, just sort of summary things that might have caught my attention that Satish is saying. And I invite everyone to go in and add things to it, notes that you might want to keep. Just have at it. So the question I have is about the circle structure. The circle structure you showed was one inside the other. And have they kept that, or have they gone more to a circle structure that is based on the functional team, like the QA team or the engineering team? How did they end up on that?
So that the thing is, they still are. So they still have a little bit of confusion. What is a strategy? How to define a strategy, and so on and so forth. And then what is the activity of an org and a project, and so on and so forth. So if you really look at their org chart, it's basically they still have currently an hierarchy, and they still have they have the circle model for strategy development. Basically, what pricing they should go for, what kind of customer they should chase, and so on and so forth. And how do they build new business models, or how do they build new business lines, and so on and so forth. So there's still a confusion. I didn't want to solve that immediately for them right now, because then we'll be asking for too many things at one shot. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to build some confidence in them that, what I'm talking makes sense to them. So now when I'm going to have a next set of conversation with them, so then I will try to see if we can talk about the structure and so on and so forth, change that, transform that in some form. Because they really are working in a circle model. If you really look at the Kanban process, so they have a team where they have a product manager, they have a engineering team, and a QA team working within the circle, and then they use other people as consultants who join the circle and then leave the circle as in when the need arises. So, but they don't call it a circle; they call it a project, right? And so that model is already there. Now, can we make that into a double linked circle of hierarchy, which they call it as a council, and so on and so forth. The problem with the council right now is an elected model. So they have a every 6 months they have an election where they, elect from the whole org, elects members to the council and so on and so forth. And I think one of the challenges they have really faced right now is some of those people do not understand how to read account books, how to read the balance sheet, and so on and so forth. So now they had to end up training everybody to understand what does it mean when you're looking at the finance table or the account sheets and so on and so forth, a balance sheet and so on and so forth. So that's one of the things they are working on. So I think once they have some more challenges, then I think it'll be a much more interesting conversation with them on what the circle structure will be.
And what is their legal structure?
Oh, so it's a private limited company, which is basically in India is something like I don't know what the equivalent of that in US.
It's
it's a
LLC.
private limited. It's not really LLC. I don't think that's more like a because in a private limited company you have shares, and these shares are then owned by the board as such. So the board members basically own the shares, and so, but there are no external representatives outside that ownership.
Okay.
So it's a pretty limited. So they have a lot of flexibility in working with their own structure, because the CEO is basically the primary shareholder.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll ask questions from my side. So Satish, fundamentally, I want to know, how did you charge the company? I mean, in terms of pricing, because that's very crucial.
So I did not do it. So this is not an engagement where I have done a workshop-based model. So this is more of a transformation-based, work. So I came more as a coach and as a facilitator, and not as a trainer and as a so my rates of, but I'm still was my rates were more of the consultancy rates, as you can look at that way.
So what are those consultancy rates you have charged?
Let's keep the rates a little away from this conversation.
I mean, it's really useful. To know.
So maybe I can take it offline and talk to you about that later, to be honest.
Or you can give the range if you want. Or you can tell, I mean, did you charge?
So the thing is, you have to realize one thing. This is not a fixed rate. So I have I did a rate for doing the initial kickoff engagement, and then I'm meeting them on a weekly basis, and I'm meeting them every 2 weeks, right? There are two different meetings doing with them on a regular basis. The one meeting on a weekly basis is basically talk about what are the current challenges they're facing with their implementation right now, and then we are doing a 2 weeks retrospective where we are actually talking about as of now what are the challenges and what worked, why didn't work, and so on and so forth. And then from there, I will actually take it into another workshop with them down the road. So that's the goal. And so it's going to be a long process with them. So it's more of an a retainership engagement with a fixed fees on doing the certain set of programs as such. And it's a monthly which I am having with them as of now. So it's not really a typical do a XYZ course and so many people, so many as the fees.
Okay. All right. So I'll go next to Parth. Parth, you came in between, and I think you're not seeing the whole presentation. But if you still have any question for Satish or comments, you can ask.
No questions for now. I need to again have a look at the entire slideshow before saying anything. So I'll probably ask, if I have any questions, I'll probably ask you offline.
Okay. Okay. The last one is Meera. You also came late, but if you still have any question or comments for Satish, please go ahead. Can you hear us, Meera? Yeah, I think she's not able to hear us. So we'll leave the comments from her. So yeah, I think John, what do you suggest? I mean, should we just decide the next meeting and the presentation?
John, you're mute.
You're mute.
You might want to go around to each person and see if they want to do a presentation.
Okay. So Satish has already done. So Aki, can you take up the next presentation? I think you mentioned.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I think in last presentation you mentioned about something of the Red Hat implementing sociocracy and so on. So can you take up that as a presentation topic?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So
And what would be the topic? I'll try to get it down here.
What would be the topic?
So I think as per she talked last time, sociocracy implementation at Red Hat. I think that should be the topic.
No, there is no sociocracy implementation.
I mean,
it's more of,
related to sociocracy. I mean,
and I wouldn't even say that. But all I see is that it being an open source company, I do see elements of sociocracy being used, and how I'm relating sociocracy concepts to how we operate in the teams. Yeah.
okay. So
You might check and see if there are other possibilities, and then we can figure out which one we want.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
okay. Mark, can you give any presentation related to sociocracy in the next meeting?
I'm still. This was the first presentation I was actually viewing, and I didn't even see it completely. So I don't have enough idea of how to go about this thing. But maybe not next time, but probably in the upcoming calls that we have later.
Okay. All right.
Just a quick question to Satish. Are you going to share the presentation as a link on the Google document?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, what we can do is last time John shared many of the presentation of different countries and different meetings. So maybe we can take one of the presentation as a study, and we can go through it, and maybe John can facilitate this. Is that okay with John?
Okay, so one suggestion is to go through the presentations that are in the Healthy Power Alliance.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and so finish collecting your thoughts and we'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Okay. And yeah, I've already mentioned my topic, so maybe I can take it up in the next meeting. Whoever wants to present first.
Okay, so we have two possibilities. One is by Aki, and one is to go through the presentations in the Healthy Power Alliance. And so you might just want to go quickly and see what people would prefer.
Okay.
It's kind of like a voting.
Okay. Voting is towards the already, done presentation, not by Aki. Maybe we can have Aki next time. Okay.
Just do it like a voting thing. Ask who would be interested in what they would choose.
Okay. I've already given a vote. Okay. Satish, what about you?
So I would be interested in hearing from Akansha about what she finds similarity in Red Hat and the Sociocracy as such. So
Okay.
I'm interested in that position.
Okay. Aki?
I'm not able to decide. So at this moment, I think both sound equally interesting to me. What John proposed and what I would like to do. Yeah. Both's okay with me.
Okay. Parth, what is your preference?
I would prefer to hear about Akanksha's experiences.
Okay. John?
When we're, let's see. Yeah, I would like to hear both about Red Hat very much, and the if we can get Akansha to do it, and if not, then I'm willing to back up. But I would like to hear. My preference would be for Akansha.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that I know of Red Hat. I don't know much about them, and I would like to hear about the experiences in his family.
Okay. So in the change round, yeah, I'm changing my mind. Yeah, let's go with Akansha. Okay, what about you, Akansha?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Satish? Mute. Voice is not coming.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, Parth? You want to
I'm
change?
fine. No change.
No change.
No change.
Okay. So, John?
That's fine. Yeah, Akansha, and I'll back up.
Okay. So, let's go with Akansha in the next presentation. And if there is any delay, then we go with the previous presentation. Okay, so I think we are on time. So is there any last comments about today's presentation? Satish?
I'm just happy I was able to sit for the 1 hour out here and then go through that presentation.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Aki?
I liked listening to Satish's experience and what all he shared today. And also I can relate to it personally, what happens when people ask what sociocracy is all about. So yes, insightful and good, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy today's presentation?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Since I came in between, I am very curious to go through Satish's presentation once again.
Okay.
So that's just my last thoughts.
Okay. All right. Okay, John.
I learned the value of checking values today. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for it. I will write you a note, Satish. I had some other follow-on questions. And Ankur, if you can record or put the link to the recording into, I don't know. I'll make some suggestions as to where to put the link to the recording, perhaps in the minutes, perhaps in a separate place.
Okay.
So thank you very much for facilitating. I'm done.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, all of you. We can just end the meeting now. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a good rest of the evening.